checking the forecast, things looking crazy. A storm on the horizon, the pressure is low. Gotta get moving, put on a show. The news is all buzzing, state of alert, but we've got a plan, we're ready to work. Emergency Management Associates, we're here for the crisis, we're here for the fates. From the first sign of trouble to the all clear sign, we're on the front lines, we're one of a kind. Emergency Management Associates, we're the calm in the chaos, we're opening gates, connecting the dots and making the calls. We're picking you up when you're starting to fall. See a little fire or a rising flood, we're a well-oiled machine, we're running in the mud. From the city hall meetings to the rescue teams, turning worst case scenarios into hopeful dreams. We're training the people, we're stocking the gear, we're the team you can count on when trouble is near. Emergency Management Associates, we're here for the crisis, we're here for the fates. From the first sign of trouble to the all clear sign, we're on the front lines, we're one of a kind. Emergency Management Associates, we're the calm in the chaos, we're opening gates, connecting the dots and making the calls. We're picking you up when you're starting to fall. It's more than a job, it's a calling you see. Prepared for the present and what's yet to be. Every second counts, we're ready to react for our communities. We're making an impact. Emergency Management Associates, we're here for the crisis, we're here for the fates. From the first sign of trouble to the all clear sign, we're on the front lines, we're one of a kind. Emergency Management Associates, we're the calm in the chaos, we're opening gates, connecting the dots and making the calls. We're picking you up when you're starting to fall. Yeah, we're picking you up, we're ready to go. EMA, let's get this show on the road.
Let's do this thing, guys. Let's kick this can. My name is Ron Tyler. I'm the president of Emergency Management Associates. We're here for you 24/7 if need be, and we are and have been in the past. We're going to kick this can on the road today, right now. Guys, we have a lot of information to talk to you about. Tons of information, in fact. Let's get this show on the road. We're coming to you from the Area Command, 392 miles west of Kitty Hawk Beach, North Carolina. Guys, this is the thing right now. We've already had an earthquake in the Philippines. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. I want to go over now and talk about Cuba. Cuba got hit today as well. A 6.1 magnitude earthquake hit off the northwest side of the island of Cuba today. Northwest side of the island of Cuba today. This is right between Cuba and the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. Both got hit. Both of these major intersections got hit by this earthquake today. I'm going to talk about this. If you have any questions, please bring them up in the chat, and I'll get to them as soon as I possibly can. Now, this is the thing. A very strong 6.1 earthquake hit. The news media is having it as a major earthquake. Remember, major earthquakes are 7.0 on large earthquakes. 7.0 on large earthquakes. This 6.1 constitutes a very strong earthquake. 6.0, 6.9 are very strong earthquakes. Okay? A 6.1 magnitude earthquake hit off the northwestern side of Cuba this afternoon, just after 2 p.m. That's according to data released by the U.S. Geological Survey. Federal researchers have traced the origin of this powerful earthquake to a point 104 kilometers west-northwest Mantua, Cuba. The impact of the shockwave traveled hundreds of miles to the north and east, and also to the west. The 6.1 magnitude earthquake struck near northwestern Cuba today, just after 2 p.m. this afternoon. It shook buildings in Havana and way beyond into Florida and over into the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. No injuries or damage have been immediately reported so far. The quake struck at the depth of 6.2 miles, 10 kilometers deep. 6.2 miles, 10 kilometers deep. This earthquake was a shallow earthquake, a very shallow earthquake, deep in waters just off the west of Cuba and east of the Yucatan Peninsula. Okay? Flavio Pupo, who's the manager of Pinar del Rio Hotel in Pinar del Rio, Cuba, described how the building shook and caused some fear. Quote, "Everyone is here. People on the street are a little bit scared," she said by telephone. The latest earthquake was felt as far away as Cuba today, and Florida, and the Yucatan Peninsula. The National Weather Service in Miami, Florida said in a tweet that it received several reports of shaking in the southwestern part of Florida. The Orienta Fault, Oriente Fault, is located just off of Cuba's southeast coast or southwest coast and has unleashed damaging earthquakes in recent centuries. The Oriente Fault, the ORIENTE fault zone just off of Cuba's southwest coast, has unleashed damaging earthquakes in recent centuries, including a 7.7 earthquake January 2020 in open waters that caused damage in Cuba and the Cayman Islands. Areas around the Yucatan Peninsula, including Cancun, felt light vibrations from the 6.1 magnitude earthquake that struck off the Gulf Coast just off the western tip of Cuba. The earthquake occurred in the early afternoon today, just after 2 p.m. Eastern Time, generating long-distance seismic waves that traveled across the water, were felt in the Yucatan Peninsula, western Cuba, and across much of Florida as well. Now, while this caused many buildings to be evacuated in the region, the tremor was relatively minor for most on the ground. Authorities stated there was no risk of tsunami from this earthquake in the Caribbean. Now, guys, in order for there to be a tsunami, I'm going to talk about tsunamis for the rest of this program. In regard to the Philippine earthquake yesterday evening, a tsunami must have an earthquake above 6.5 in magnitude. A tsunami must have an earthquake above 6.5 in magnitude to even create the tsunami. Second, two things here. The ocean floor must be jarred. The ocean floor must be jarred to a point where it's going to have a significant effect on what's going on in the water. Meaning, part of the ocean floor is going to go down like this or up. Part of the ocean floor is either going up or down in relative to the height of the ocean floor. What happens then? When we have a dip in the floor of the ocean like this, then all the water coming from the ocean shores of the islands or ocean shores of the mainland of land, that water that's on the shoreline rushes out into the ocean to fill that void created by that dip in the ocean floor. Ocean water rushes out to fill that void, and all of a sudden when it hits that void, it goes and rears back. It rears back and causes a tsunami. Some tsunamis are of epic proportion. That did not happen last night in the Philippines. There was no appreciable tsunami in the Philippines at all, or anywhere else. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying, in the Philippines, they had upwards of 8 inches of tsunami available. They had 8 inches of tsunami that happened there. 8 inches. At most, they were scheduled to have upwards of 3 feet high. 3 feet high. Now, given that situation now, when this earthquake first happened, they were predicting a tsunami as high as 1 to 9 meters, 3 to 9 feet high. 3 to 9 feet high. It didn't happen. It did not materialize, and we're going to discuss that tonight. In regards to this 6.1 earthquake off of Cuba, do you guys have any questions? Any questions, guys? Richard Lyons is here. We appreciate you being here, Richard. Thank you for being here. Faith of Diana is here. Earl Life is here. Cozy Drone is here. My buddy Rich Quake from Nova Scotia, Canada is here. I really appreciate him being here as well. We appreciate all of you that are here. All of you, we appreciate very much. Please, guys, as we go through this program tonight, please give us a thumbs up if you appreciate what we're doing here. You appreciate what we're saying here on this program, giving you significant information about what happened. We'd appreciate a thumbs up for that. Also, something else you can do. Don't leave this program for any length of time. Stay here for the entire program, because if you leave, you're not going to get the significant information we have laid out for you tonight. Okay? I have a lot of information. YouTube also has analytical factors that they use to see whether they're going to even share this program with other people here on YouTube. One of them is the number of people that are watching this program. The number of people watching this program. Second, how long you watch this program. We have to have people that watch this program over 20 minutes long. 20 minutes in time period that you watch this program. That's in order for ask for YouTube to see whether they're going to even share this program to other people here on YouTube. The third thing, the number of likes, the number of thumbs up that we get. Okay, that's absolutely necessary. Okay, also the fourth thing, after this program is over, YouTube leaves a comment section after the video is over, right below the video that you're seeing today. Please leave us positive comments after this program is over. We'd appreciate it. YouTube uses those comments and the other aforementioned analytical factors to ascertain whether they're going to allow anybody else to see this program. We appreciate your cooperation. Number fifth thing we need you to do. Guys, if you enjoy this program and things we've been talking about now and in the past and going on to the future, if you would like to, please, and if you're able to, please give us donations to our program. We have 2 PayPal locations scrolling across the bottom of your screen. 2 PayPal locations scrolling across the bottom of your screen. Go there and leave us a donation to our program. That helps keep us on the air. We have to have a minimum of 1 gig of bandwidth to broadcast this program. 1 gig of bandwidth here costs us $258 a month. Incredible. Please help us defray those costs by helping support this program. Also, one other way you can do it, you see our postal address floating across the bottom of your screen. Our address there is 504 Bethel Road, Box 401. Morganton, North Carolina. The zip code here is 28655. You can send us a card and or a letter. We'd appreciate that very much. Inside your card or letter, you can send us cash or a check. Make sure it's wrapped in the letter and or put in the card and mail it to us. We'd appreciate that very much to help keep this program in the air. Now, enough of that. I don't like to beg for money, but guess what? We need help keeping this program on the air. We really do. Now, guys, as for what happened last night in the Philippines, let's get started and talking about it. We have a lot of information for you. I guarantee that. Tons of information about this Philippine earthquake. It turns out by USGS saying that it was a 7.8 earthquake. I have a lot more information than that saying how strong this earthquake is. Lots and lots of information. Someone last night, after we broadcast the information about this earthquake, someone last night said, what about the heliplots? Heliplots are graphs from devices set all around the world that record earthquakes around the world. We're going to show those to you in just a minute. I'm going to show you those heliplots in just a minute. This isn't pertinent to what we're talking about. Very pertinent. Now, guys, we love you. We care about you. That's why we talk about earthquakes, all kinds of other disasters and emergencies around the world. Why? Because we want to make sure people are prepared for what's happening. We want to make sure you are prepared for what is going on. That's why we talk about this. It's very important. Very, very, very important. Lots of things have happened. Lots and lots of things have happened. This is one of the pictures from Bethel, Philippines today. General Santos is a city on the southwestern shores of Mindanao, Philippines. Mindanao, Philippines is the largest island in the southern section of the Philippines. Largest island in the southern section of the Philippines. Davao City sits over on the southeast side of Mindanao, Philippines. We're going to talk about General Santos in just a minute. This is Davao, Philippines here. Notice building collapses going on here. Building collapses all over southern Philippines today. Like I said, all over the southern Philippines today. It's rather unfortunate. Rather unfortunate. This is another picture we saw earlier today. These are coming out of the Philippines this morning. Okay? Like I said, a magnitude 7.8 earthquake struck off the southern Philippines at 7:37 a.m. local time last night. Now, I'm talking about two different things. Last night, we were on the air to talk about this, but in the Philippines time, it was 7:37 a.m. in the morning. They were already starting school in the Philippines. They were already starting school in the Philippines. We're going to talk more about that in just a minute. Now, I want to talk about heliplots now. Heliplots. This is a heliplot right here. Okay? This heliplot right here is very important to understand. This is from Davao, Philippines. Like I said, on the southern east side of the Philippines. Davao, Philippines. Look at this. What does this mean? Simply, this just means there was a lot of shaking. Now, we have had total blackouts from these graphs in other places around the world when we've had major earthquakes. A blackout earthquake would be a 9.0 or larger earthquake. We've had near blackout conditions on some of these heliplots in the past when the earthquake was above 9.0 or larger. This is near blackout conditions here in the Philippines. Now, given this thing, I want to talk about this. This was at near the epicenter, about 150, 175 miles east of the epicenter where this earthquake hit. I want to make that clear. Okay? That's why I'm showing this to you. Now, given that information, again, I want to show you where this earthquake occurred. Okay? This graph here comes from USGS. This slide here comes from USGS. Guess what? Let me show you something else. This is European agency picture here. European agency's picture here shows over 100 earthquakes already off of southwestern Philippines. Over 100 earthquakes, probably closer to 200 earthquakes. That is the primary shaker and also the aftershocks. Also the aftershocks here. Okay? Now, given that, I want to bring up the USGS map just for a brief minute. I want to show you what is happening here. This is also important. Okay? These are what the USGS is showing us right now on the present USGS map. This was an earthquake from last night. This was a 7.8 earthquake from last night. Okay? As you can see, there's a lot of earthquakes here. This is a 6.1 earthquake. This is a 6.1 earthquake just along the shoreline near General Santos, Philippines. That's a 6.1 earthquake. Okay? Going further down here to the south, this is another 6.0 earthquake. 6.0, 6.9 are considered to be strong earthquakes. 6.6 and to 6.9 are very strong earthquakes. 7.0, 7.9 are considered to be major earthquakes. 7.6 to 7.9 are considered to be very major earthquakes. Anything over 7.0 is considered to be a major earthquake, including 8.0, 8.9, 9.0, 9.9, and 10.0 plus earthquakes. Major earthquakes. Okay? This was a 6.5 aftershock. This was a 6.5 aftershock from last night. This happened several hours after the main shock. Several hours after the main shock. We've continued to have earthquakes here. Lots and lots of earthquakes. But again, USGS is not even coming close to showing you all the earthquakes that are heading here. They never do. They never do. They never will. They never will show all the earthquakes around the globe. They haven't done that for about 20 years now. They've gotten gradually and gradually worse. I hate saying that because I am a geology student. I studied geology in college, got a degree, left college and became a cop because a police officer. I ended up getting a major in police science. My minor was in geology. I originally went to school to get a major in geology to become a space geologist, a cosmos geologist. I wanted to go to the moon and beyond. That's why I originally went to school. Then a friend of mine told me about law enforcement, wanted me to take some law enforcement courses with him, which I did. I ended up getting a degree in law enforcement as well. But my secondary degree is still with me. Okay? Still with me. Since I got my degree, I've continued to explore geology as a hobby and as also a profession. Over 7 years ago, I decided to start a YouTube program about what we're doing here today. Over 7 years ago, April 3rd, 7 years ago. We're starting on our 8th year now. Now, guys, what I'm telling you now is specific to what happened in the Philippines last night. I want you to understand this. Okay? Again, a magnitude 7.8 earthquake struck off the southern Philippines, southwest of General Santos, Philippines. Remember that name, General Santos City, Philippines. Okay? Let's go back and take a look at that. Take a look at that heliplot here. Right here. This heliplot is almost completely blacked out. That's because of the strength of this earthquake. Now, USGS is saying this was a 7.8 earthquake. Originally, it came out as an 8.3. It originally came out as an 8.3 magnitude earthquake. Guess what? I've done my research. This may have been as large as an 8.3, 8.5 earthquake. This may have been as large as a 8.3 to 8.5 earthquake. There are people on social media, including here on YouTube, that were calling it a 9.0. As I am showing you here today, this was not a 9.0 magnitude earthquake, but this was definitely over a 7.8. Definitely over a 7.8. Now, what I'm going to show you now is also pertinent to what I'm showing you now, what I've shown you already. This is that same earthquake from the Philippines as seen from the Black Forest Observatory in Germany. The Black Forest Seismic Observatory in Germany. The same thing is here, nearly blacked out here as well. This is seen over half world away here in Germany. Let me show you something else. This is as it is being seen from Casey, Antarctica. Casey, Antarctica on the southern Antarctic plateau in the southern hemisphere. Casey, Antarctica here. Let's go north to Outpost, Alaska. Over a quarter of a hemisphere north. Over a quarter of a hemisphere north, almost an entire half hemisphere. We're still seeing the very same seismic waves. Same seismic waves. Again, I'm showing you this information so you can understand why I'm calling this at least an 8.3 to 8.5 earthquake. Because USGS is not showing that. They never will. They never will. This is from Hokkaido, Japan. Hokkaido, Japan. Okay, this is about a third of a hemisphere north and northwest from General Santos, Philippines. Still, you're seeing the same seismic waves here that we showed on the other side of the Earth. Same seismic waves. Let's go also north to Kodiak Island, just south and west from College Outpost, Alaska. This is Kodiak Island here. Same seismic waves here. Okay. Let's go over to Maine. Maine, a half hemisphere away. Actually, a full hemisphere away. This is northern hemisphere on the northeastern side of the United States. Machias, Maine. Same things here. Same kind of seismic waves here. They've not dissipated at all, have they? They really haven't. Let's go over to Panama. This time in the southern hemisphere, but now we've gone east across the Pacific Ocean. Across on the eastern side of the Pacific Ocean, in the Ring of Fire. Let's go over to Hawaii now. Hawaii is about a third of a hemisphere away from the Philippines. The same thing is true about Hawaii here. The seismic impact here in Hawaii is pretty much the same as the rest of the world. Same seismic waves. Same seismic waves here. Let's take a look at Norway. Spitsbergen, Norway. In the central part of the Republic of Norway, Kingdom of Norway. Same thing here. This time we're on the half side of the world, the back half of the world. Norway here, Spitsbergen, Norway. Same thing is true here. Waves have not changed at all. Let's look at Greenland. Greenland here, look at this. The same thing is true about here in Greenland. They're recording the same seismic waves, guys. The same seismic waves. But this is again on the other side of the world, away from the Philippines. One more here. One more here. This is Honduras. Honduras, Central America. Same thing is true here. Didn't stop, did it? Really doesn't. Why am I showing you this? Because the agency is trying to cover this up. They're trying to deny that it happened, but it did. It definitely happened. They're trying to say it was much less of an earthquake. I am saying it is a major earthquake. Yes, it is a major earthquake, as it is a 7.0 large. 7.0 is a major earthquake. 7.8 is the upper side of a 7.0. But this came out as an 8.3 earthquake. I believe they should have left it alone. They should have left it alone. Things are happening all over the Philippines now. Okay? Literally all over the Philippines now. I want to show you a restaurant. I want to show you a restaurant that suffered from this earthquake. This is a Jollibee restaurant. General Santos City. A Jollibee restaurant had collapsed. Collapsed. A university building I'm going to show you also collapsed. This was a university building. General Santos, Philippines. University building also collapsed. A mall, guys, in General Santos City collapsed. A mall. Go figure. A mall collapsed. One more thing. Something else happened over there in the Philippines as well. Right here's a radio studio. DXRMD radio studio. It's called Love Radio over there in General Santos City. The studios here were heavily damaged. Okay? While tsunami warnings went out across at least 9 Mindanao coastal areas, with the first wave of arrival windows as short as 5 minutes, and Pacific Ocean monitoring reached U.S. territory of Guam. Last night we talked about tsunami waves, tsunami advisories, tsunami warnings that were not issued. The observed tsunami waves came in far smaller than the 1 to 3 meter forecast. 1 meter is 3 feet high. 9 meters just over 9, or 3 meters is just over 9 feet high, closer to 10. That was the variable depth of the tsunami waves. Now, guys, this earthquake was no deeper than 10 kilometers deep, 6.2 miles deep, 70 to 76 kilometers deep, between 10 and 76 kilometers deep. This is a single scientific variable that explains why the same region's 1976 Morro Gulf disaster shows what this same earthquake fault is capable of. This 1976 Morro Gulf earthquake injured thousands of people and killed more thousands of people. Okay, 1976. 50 years ago. The magnitude 7.8 earthquake that USGS is talking about here in the Philippines was one of the most dangerous tectonic intersections on Earth. One of the most dangerous tectonic intersections on Earth. Like I said last night, tsunami warnings went out across 9 coastal areas, reaching all the way to the U.S. territory of Guam. Again, this is the middle of 7 different tectonic plate subduction zone regions. Where this earthquake happened is right smack dab in the middle of 7 different tectonic plate subduction zone regions. Subduction zone regions. That means one plate going underneath the other like this. One plate subducting underneath the other plate like this, going down deep into the mantle of the earth. Going down deep into the mantle of the earth. The water tsunami that arrived was just a fraction of what was feared. The gap between the catastrophe that was forecast and the one that actually happened has a single scientific explanation. This is the same reason that this exact stretch of ocean that killed thousands of people in 1976 nearly happened again last night. We're going to show you whether the worst is behind Mindanao, Philippine Island, or even ahead of it, and what we could possibly expect to see within the next 48 hours. Let me give you a little refresher of what happened yesterday morning at approximately 7:37 a.m. Philippine time. The seafloor off the southern Philippines tore open. The seafloor off the southern Philippines tore open. Literally tore open. Tore open like this. Again, USGS is saying that a magnitude 7.8 earthquake struck offshore, roughly 26 kilometers, about 16 miles west-southwest of the southwestern edge of the coastal community of Cabalan, Kabalan, in Sarangani Province, Philippines, the southwestern edge of the Mindanao Island, Philippines. Mindanao Island is the largest island in the Philippines. The shaking reached across southern part of the island and into parts of northern Indonesia as well as within literally seconds. The shaking that started in the Philippines here in the ocean here arrived in northern Indonesia within seconds. Before most people in General Santos City had finished their morning briefings, morning breakfast, and they even started school, buildings were already coming down. Again, this is one of the strongest earthquakes the Philippines has ever experienced in recent decades. This is a statement where this earthquake event sits in the record of one of the most earthquake-prone countries on the planet. One of the most earthquake-prone countries on the planet. Again, the Philippines is right smack dab in the middle of the 7 tectonic plate area, the 7 tectonic plate region, with one tectonic plate subducting on the other just like this. Now, I have already showed you hundreds of earthquakes that hit here in the Philippines and down into northern Indonesia already today. Hundreds of them. Hundreds of earthquakes. Now, one of the most important things we need to understand right now, this event is not finished. This story event is not finished. Aftershocks are still coming. Aftershocks are still coming. We keep getting an aftershock on average of every 3 minutes so far. I've timed it. The tsunami warning stayed active for hours after the rupture. Last night I showed you a lot of tsunami warnings throughout our evening last night. There was never any tsunami at all except for maybe around the coastline. Again, no more than 3 feet high. And some inches is no more than 8 inches high above the tide level. The casualty figures are still being verified. And are almost all so unbelievable. Today, the morning after, the casualty figures are almost incomplete, certainly incomplete. When you've watched the footage of the building pancaking into a cloud of dust, you're not watching the end of the event. You are watching the middle of one. When you see a building pancake or a house or apartment building pancake, you are seeing the middle of the event. Now let's talk about the numbers first, because the numbers speak for themselves. The numbers themselves became part of the story in the first few hours. USGS and several international agencies came together on a magnitude of approximately 7.8 earthquake. Germany's GFZ agency initially reported a figure as high as 8.2 before revising it downward. As I told you last night, I've told you today also, USGS came out with this as an 8.3. They later downgraded to a 7.8 finally. Came down on 8.2, 8.1, 8.0, then abruptly down to 7.8. I showed you the aftershocks that USGS had for us on their backside seismology study page. I showed you their study page. Under 7.8, they had no seismographs reporting any data. They had 19 seismographs reporting data, but none being available to show the public. 7.8 earthquake, they had no data to show the public at all, but they did show us a 7.2 data. This was never a 7.2 earthquake. Under that data, I showed you several data sheets where it was a 7.8 earthquake, but the data was all over the place. Some seismographs reporting 5.6 large earthquakes, others reporting 6.0, 6.1, 6.5, 6.7, 6.8, 6.9, 7.0s, all the way up to 7.8. But the 7.8 data sheet was not published. That's because USGS tried to put this out as less than an earthquake than it was. That's what the USGS does. In the chaotic first minutes, public estimates circulated all over the internet ranged all the way from 8.0 to 9.2. This was not a 9.0 or 9.2 event, but this may have been close to it. As I said, I have estimated by showing you the helioplots. I showed you the helioplots were almost blacked out, which means this earthquake was at least an 8.2, 8.3 earthquake. At least an 8.2, 8.3 earthquake, possibly even as strong as an 8.5. Okay? The internet went wild last night. They were rumored in preliminary automatic readings. Those automatic rumored readings spread faster than any agency could settle the magnitude of a shaking. Before any agency could even come up with a magnitude of shaking, the internet went wild with upwards of 9.2 shaking going on. The gap between the rumor and reality matters. We're going to be talking about this, guys. We're going to go back to it because what it will tell you is about how a disaster looks in its first hour versus how it looks after the data settles. How it looks after the data settles here. Now I want to explain the variable here. The variable that decides almost everything about how bad an earthquake that is actually has hit. The variable that decides almost everything about how bad an earthquake this was. This is not the magnitude. 6.2 miles, 10 kilometers is the depth of this earthquake. The depth of yesterday's rupture was reportedly variable. The word variable means doing a lot of work. At the time this earthquake hit, agencies around the world were doing a lot of work to try to determine, one, how deep this earthquake was and how strong this earthquake was. That is a lot of work. I'll give them that. Some sources put this as deep as 10 kilometers deep. Other agencies put it as deep as 55 kilometers deep. Still others cited intermediate value near 76 kilometers deep. That's huge. 76 kilometers is about 47 miles below the surface of the earth. This is huge rounding error. It's a huge rounding error. It is the difference between two different equations here. That is a huge spread. It is not about completely different physical events. The difference between 55 kilometers deep and 76 kilometers deep. This is not two different physical events. This is one earthquake event. Here's why. When an earthquake ruptures close to the surface, here, you see the earthquake tear, the tear in the lower ground below the earth that we walk on, the crust. Here you see the Sunda plate and the Philippine Sea plate on the eastern side of the Philippines. This is the subduction zone you see here. This earthquake happened in the subduction zone. Happened deep underneath the Philippines in deep subduction zone. This is important. This is vitally important to understand what happened here. I'm already seeing everybody leaving this program. Not interested in this. This is what it would have looked like if we would have a major tsunami. The plate's totally shifting, causing an uproar on the sea floor, forcing land and water upwards. Causes a tsunami. Okay? When an earthquake ruptures close to the surface, about 10 kilometers down, almost all of its energy arrives at the ground with very little ground or earth to absorb it. When an earthquake ruptures about 10 kilometers deep, 6.2 miles deep, almost all the energy arrives at the ground, arrives at the top of the crust, with very little ground above it on Earth to absorb the shock waves, of the earthquake. A shallow magnitude 7.8 is the worst case scenario. This shallow 7.8 earthquake, USGS is saying this is their worst case scenario. It shakes the surface violently. And if it happens offshore, it can shove the seafloor upward, as I'm showing you in this diagram, on this slide. It can shove the seafloor upward and drives large volume of water, ocean water, into a tsunami. This is a nightmare version. This is nightmare version here. But when the same magnitude earthquake ruptures deeper inside the subduction slab at 47 miles, 76 kilometers deep, the energy of this earthquake, energy of the seismic waves, has to travel through tens of kilometers of rock before it reaches anyone at the surface. It has to go through tens of kilometers of rock to let the seismic waves reach the surface to us. The shaking on the surface is dampened. The shaking at the surface is dampened. And just as importantly, a deeper rupture displaces far less of the seafloor directly. This was a deeper rupture, guys. A deeper rupture displaces far less of the seafloor directly, which means it generates a far smaller tsunami for the same magnitude earthquake. It generates a far smaller tsunami for the same magnitude of earthquake. We've seen other earthquakes throughout the last 7 years we've been on the air. Some of them deep earthquakes, 300 kilometers deep, 500 kilometers deep, over 600 kilometers deep. Those are deep earthquakes. What happened last night here in the Philippines was a shallow earthquake. Very shallow earthquake. Okay? Now, with that said, I've already shown you damage in the Philippines. You see that this tsunami fell well short of the projections. The tsunami that was generated last night in the Philippines, on the shore of the Philippines, was generally shallow earthquake. The shallow earthquake caused tsunami to be way short of what it could have been. The tsunami in several places was 8 inches deep, up to 3 feet deep, no more than that. That is a very small tsunami. We've seen this happen in Alaska several years ago when we had a 7.8 and then an 8.7 earthquake southwest of the Alaska Peninsula. Okay? Now, the depth of the actual earthquake here is the explanation sitting beneath both of these facts. If this rupture was genuinely shallow, then the region here escaped a much worse outcome, mostly because of the specific location of the fault and exactly how much crust actually moved. Again, how much crust of the earth we walk on actually moved. If this earthquake was deeper in the area between 47 and 76 kilometers deep, then the relatively contained damage and the modest waves that we saw from this earthquake, the very modest tsunami waves, are exactly what the physicists predict. Exactly what the physicists predicted, at least at this point. A depth of 50 miles is consistent with a subduction zone slab earthquake. This is consistent with the subduction zone slab earthquake, rather than a shallow interface megathrust earthquake. This was not a shallow interface megathrust earthquake. There's something else here worth understanding, because it explains why the agencies disagreed in the first place. Determining the depth of the earthquake in the first minutes is always extremely difficult. The instruments recording the depth and the arrival of the seismic waves at the stations spread across the region, and depth of this earthquake is calculated from the timing differences between different type waves, different wave types. That calculation carries real uncertainty, which is why one agency can be set on 10 kilometers deep and another agency lands on 55 kilometers deep and a third on 76 kilometers deep. In the past, I thought that was being careless. They're all trying to solve the same hard problems with all kinds of different station data and different station models. Not one agency is operating on the same sheet of paper. Not one single agency is operating on the same sheet of paper. The answers they get converge only as more readings come in. And then the solutions are reviewed by hand. This is why the variable depth reporting is the single most important scientific detail of the entire event. Reporting reviewed by hand. This is the answer to the question everyone is actually asking, which is how close did southern Mindanao Island come to see a catastrophe? And the honest answer this morning, on the morning after, is that we do not yet have an answer for that question. We don't have a final answer to this question because the agencies are still finalizing their numbers for both the depth and the magnitude of the earthquake. They are looking at scientific data. They're looking at heliopod data. They're looking at the size of the earthquake itself, and the depth of the earthquake. They are still finalizing the numbers of this earthquake. The most concentrated damage hit General Santos City. Let's bring you back to the slides I was showing you earlier. An apartment building collapsed, pancaked all over here. You see an almost brand new car sitting there with very slight damage. A building collapsed in downtown General Santos City. Building collapses along the shoreline. This actually happened. Look at this crack in the roadway. We've talked about earthquakes in the past. This is important to understand. Yes, this earthquake happened offshore, but we are still seeing fraction of the roadways, fraction all over the countryside here in the Philippines. That's what happens when we have a major earthquake. Please don't forget that. This is important to remember. Now again, let me show you the earthquake, the epicenter of the earthquake, out here offshore from General Santos City. Look at this depth here, depth of the ocean here. Yes, the earthquake was deep, shallowly deep. This again is off in the water here, off the shoreline from General Santos City. The seismic waves move over to General Santos and other communities along the shoreline of the southwestern side of Mindanao, Philippine Island. Okay? The most concentrated damage hit General Santos City, locally known as Jensen. locally known as Jensen. Let's show you General Santos International Airport. They call it Jensen right here. The airport tarmac was torn up. Parts of this building pancaked. The windows of General Santos City Airport, broken out by the shaking. This picture here, found on the internet, is the reason this story is in the leading headline news today. Buildings throughout the entire region collapsed. I showed you that in the beginning of this program. The Jollibee restaurant collapsed. Building at Notre Dame University also collapsed. Let me show you that. This is General Santos University. It's called the Dame Dangus University. It collapsed. A walkway here also at the university collapsed right here. Big time collapse. Buildings throughout the region collapsed. The shopping mall, by all accounts, was destroyed. The footbridge at the university dropped. Even the studios of Love Radio Station were damaged. Residential buildings collapsed or partially collapsed. The streets have been filled with debris and downed power lines. This is a dangerous area to be in. There is video footage that I'm not going to show you tonight, maybe another night. The video footage shows roofs collapsing on schools, entire structure pancaked with dust clouds rising off the rubble in real time. The airport collapsed, shut down. When you watch a multi-story building drop into its own footprint, what you are seeing is the violent surface shaking that we described a few moments ago. The energy here that shallow rupture delivered was almost nothing to absorb it. Because it was so shallow. It had very little earth above it to absorb the shaking. That's why you see all these buildings collapse. The major shaking was absorbed at the surface of the earth here. People ran outdoors to save themselves in panic. In Capawan, Philippines, 17 students were taken to the hospital, not for crush injuries, but for anxiety and seismic attacks. Asthma seismic attacks, triggered by the violence of the moment of shaking. Asthma attacks caused by shaking. Caused and triggered by the violence of the moment. None of those people were physically seriously hurt. But this detail tells you something about human reality. Human reality at a major earthquake site. The physical collapse is only just part of it. Power outages, telecommunication disruptions are spread throughout the region. They are the worst. Near the epicenter, down southeast of where this earthquake hit, in Sarangani, Philippines, a smaller island just southeast of Mindanao, Philippines. This is exactly where you least want your communication center to fail, because this is where you want the rescue teams to need to coordinate with you for rescue operations of your family, your friends. This is the part of the story I want you to remember. The casualty figures on the morning after are still being verified. Earlier this morning, they had found one person that was certifiably dead. 5 others were being verified. Right now, as of early this afternoon, they had found a total of 35 bodies, but the search teams have just barely begun sifting through the rubble. The rubble that killed people as a result of this deadly earthquake. 35 people have been killed, unalived, as a result of this earthquake. We know for a fact that there are still people trapped in the debris. The residential collapse apartment buildings here are still being gone through. There are single-family homes also that have collapsed. And because this earthquake hit early in the morning, we know there are many people yet to be found. Like I said earlier this morning, they just barely found a handful of people. Now it's over 35 people that they found. With all the damage and building collapses that we are going to see being found, local police, firefighters, paramedics, EMT, and disaster officials are still working to verify reports of people that are down, buried in rubble in General Santos City and other places. Some witnesses' accounts describe numerous injuries and additional fatalities, but the official tally just so far stayed low because we are only in the beginning stages of disaster search and rescue. We are not even getting close to recovery at this point in time. We're not even close to recovering people at this time alive. Now, I want to be very careful, and I want to be very precise here, because there is a pattern of how these numbers move. And understanding is just a part of understanding the event was honestly a very, very dangerous quake. The numbers are going to continue to move. This is how we understand how strong this earthquake really was. Honestly understand. I want to emphasize the word honestly. I want to think that these people will honestly report us the information. We cannot and will not get ahead of ourselves in this quest for information. We will not get away from ourselves or away from the authorities there just because we can. A low confirmed casualty count in the first hours after a major earthquake is not the same thing as a low final casualty count. The casualty count at the beginning of the earthquake, beginning of the event, is totally different than after the end of the event. After the earth stops shaking and after most of the rubble has been gone through. It almost never is. The figures lag reality on the ground because the reality on the ground is collapsed buildings that have not yet been searched through. Communications in southern Philippines has gone dark in the worst hit areas. Rescue teams have not yet reached most of the remote coastal areas. Rescue search teams have not actually gotten to the coastal remote areas and villages along the coastline of Mindanao, Philippines. We can only hope that when the official numbers tells us and comes in, that we may find only 35 people died. We hope. We hope and pray that's the number. They've already reported people injured. And for now, we can breathe somewhat of a sigh of relief. But the numbers have just started. As search and rescue teams search the rubble of Gednesen Airport, and once they reach the areas near the epicenter of Sarangani, the casualty and damage numbers will most assuredly rise. That is the expected trajectory, and why it is so important that no one on the ground was treating yesterday's low count as good news. There's a second good reason. The early count underestimates the danger. The early count underestimates the danger of what's happened here. All that debris on top of living human beings. All that debris collapsed on top of living, breathing human beings. The damage was concentrated somewhat in General Santos City, which is a major urban center. But the epicenter was offshore Sarangani, Philippines. The coastal communities nearest the rupture are smaller and more spread out and harder to reach quickly. These are precisely the places where information moves slowly in the first days of the event, and precisely the same places that lost power and telecommunications. The confirmed casualty numbers assembled in the first hours weighted on heavily towards the city, where reporters and officials already are there. We are still not yet capturing the full picture from the small coastal islands near the fault. This is one very good reason that the figure should read as a floor. The 35 people that have been casualties so far, that should read the floor of the event. The beginning of this event, not the ceiling. President Ferdinand Marcos declared that government will not leave Mindanao behind. The Philippine government will not leave Mindanao Island, Philippines behind. The Philippines National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, the NDRRMC, and local risk reduction people, local other authorities, and other official channels, including the Red Cross. That's where we're going to go for real updates. That's where we're going to go for real updates about what happened. They are the true sources where we can get true picture of what happened last night and this morning, and this week and next month. On the ground level reality, a major seismic rupture, concentrated structural damage in one city, a low but rising casualty count, and a region where communications were knocked out exactly where they were needed the most. Let's talk about this part of the event that nearly turned a regional disaster into a mass casualty event, which may still do. and the historical reason everyone is still watching the water. The historical reason everybody is still watching the water. The tsunami was not what we would have expected with an event of this kind of earthquake. Within minutes of the rupture, the tsunami warnings went out to Indonesia, their monitoring agency, Japan's Meteorological Authority, the United States Operated Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. All agencies issued alerts. We showed you the information last night. Warnings went up for at least 9 coastal communities across the southwestern part of Mindanao, Philippines. 9 coastal areas. The time of these warnings is generally frightening when you really look at it. In the municipality of Masin, M-A-S-I-M, in Sarangani, the first wave was estimated to arrive at approximately 7:42 a.m. The rupture was at 7:37. A variable 5-minute window here. 5-minute window. 5 minutes between the ground shaking and the water potentially arriving. 5 minutes from the end of the earth shaking, the ground shaking, and the tsunami arrival. 5 minutes. This is exactly why coastal communities and subduction zones are taught that the earthquake itself is a warning up front. The earthquake shaking that you feel is the earthquake warning that you're going to find. If the shaking is violent and you're on the coast, you're going to move very quickly to high ground. You're going to move to high ground very immediately before any official warning gets to you. Before any official warning gets to you. You feel the ground shaking, you're near the coastline, you need to run, not walk. You need to run and not walk. Fact. Again, if the shaking is very violent and you're on the coast, you move to high ground immediately before any parts of the ground finish shaking and knock you to the ground and bury you. Fact. You're going to want to get to high ground immediately before any official warning can possibly reach you. Coastal residents in parts of Mindanao, Philippines were urged to evacuate, and the evacuations did happen. In coastal villages, people moved. In one small city of mine, no casualties were reported. That does not mean this did not happen. Again, this event is only in its infancy. It's only in the beginning. Japan also issued a tsunami advisory for parts of its own coasts. Earthquake sets off brief tsunami alert and mega earthquake advisory in northern Japan. That was the reading on the head of social media in Japan. Earthquake in the Philippines sets off brief tsunami alert and a mega earthquake advisory in northern Japan. The Pacific monitoring extended outwards across the entire region, including watch coverage it took in parts of the U.S. territory of Guam and other Pacific islands. Then the water. The tsunami didn't largely come at all, but not the way it was feared. The forecast had been for possible waves of 1 to 3 feet high, 1 to 1 kilometer high. Estimates were 1 kilometer to 3 kilometers deep, 9 feet deep tsunami. That again is roughly 3 to 10 feet high above normal tide levels. Small waves were monitored in at least 6 coastal areas, generally in the range of 0.2 kilometers to 1.5 kilometer. 1.5 kilometer, just over 3 feet high. A wave of approximately 0.19 meters under what was detected in Indonesia. A wave approximately 0.19 meters under what was initially detected in Indonesia. Some areas saw the characteristic initial water recession that we usually seen, that are reported about when we talk about the Cascade earthquake and the water leaving the shoreline. That did happen here in Indonesia. But it was not like it would happen. But this would have been a larger, shallower, and more dangerous earthquake. Okay? Waves of roughly 1 to 1.5 meters were noted in spots including Davao City, Philippines, but there was no destructive life-taking tsunami. There was no destructive life-taking tsunami at all. Very critically, there was no tsunami threat to distant regions. The official assessment was clear from Hawaii. U.S. West Coast and New Zealand faced no tsunami threat at all. The warning footprint was regional, confined to the Philippines and to its immediate neighbors in Indonesia and Malaysia. So why was the observed tsunami so much shallower than the forecast? You already know the answer because we talked about it just a few minutes ago. It comes back to the depth and how much C4 was displaced. How much C4 was displaced? Not much. Not much. Fortunately, again, this earthquake was shallower and it arrived from initial shallower depths. The C4 itself was not damaged significantly. The C4 was not displaced at all. Okay? A magnitude 7.8 has the raw energy to generate a serious tsunami, but only if the rupture is shallow enough and displaces enough of the C4 vertically. Displaces enough of the C4 vertically. If this rupture was deeper, or if the fault moved in a way that shoved the crust sideways more than it lifted it up, then the ocean above it was never given the land vertical thrust. The ocean above the earthquake was not given enough land vertical thrust that would build destructive tsunami waves. How the fault moved is not known precisely at this time. Again, the scientists, the experts are still working to discern those numbers. The exact C4 displacement ultimately governs the tsunami potential not yet known. But again, we are only in the beginning stages of this event. The small observed waves are themselves a piece of the evidence. They're telling us that whatever happened down there, it did not displace the seafloor the way the worst case scenario required. Why did every one of these tsunami waves and these tsunami warnings carry such urgency? These warnings, these tsunami warnings, the warnings we gave you last night, show an urgency. Why? Why do you think these warnings have such an urgency? Why? These warnings always have this urgency given to always save lives. That is why these tsunami warnings are given, to save lives. We know most information from past events. That history has proven that we must put out the warning and save lives. We know exactly what this exact stretch of ocean has done before, because southern Mindanao, Philippines is not a place where a tsunami warning is a routine precaution. It's not a routine place for routine tsunami warning precaution. It is a place, however, with a normally large body count. On August 16, 1976, a magnitude 8.0 earthquake struck the Morro Gulf, West Mindanao Island, just a little bit north of where we are today. The same broad region, the same subduction zone, region. That earthquake, that 8.0, generated a tsunami that killed thousands of people. By most estimates, somewhere between 5,000 to 8,000 people died, which makes the 1976 Morro Philippine disaster one of the most deadliest natural disasters in modern Philippine history. One of the most deadliest disasters in modern Philippine history. The wave also came at night. That's not necessarily the way where I would want to be at during nighttime when a major earthquake hit. Again, USGS is calling this a 7.8 earthquake. I showed you the helioplots showing you that this earthquake was much larger than a 7.8, probably closer to an 8.3, 8.5 earthquake. And that's what it came out first to be, an 8.3 earthquake. That 1976 earthquake hit in the middle of the night. 5,000, 8,000 people died. The tsunami itself killed thousands of people. The tsunami wave came at night into low-lying coastal communities. This is just one reason why the earthquake unalived thousands of people. This is a proof of the concept of what a shallow offshore earthquake in this small corner of the Pacific is physically capable of. That is what this ghost standing behind yesterday's tsunami warnings. This is why we have a ghost standing behind yesterday's tsunami warnings. When the Philippine agency people and the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center pushed out alerts within minutes, and when they put a 5-minute window on Maine, Gentle Santos, Philippines, and other small low-lying communities, they were not alarmist scientists. They were not alarmist scientists. They were responding to a region that has demonstrated in our history that it can and will produce a tsunami capable of killing thousands of people. The 1976 event defines the worst case scenario for this fault system. The reason yesterday did not become another 1976 is not that the warnings were unnecessary. It is the specific physics of this particular rupture. It was most likely the depth and the C4 displacement didn't line up the way the 1976 earthquake did. The C4 displacement did not line up the way the 1976 earthquake tsunami did. That's the reason. This is how the 76 earthquake happened in 1976. Tsunami waves generated, came ashore within minutes because that earthquake was close to shore just like this was. That's what happens when you have an earthquake close to shore. We talked about this before. That's what happens. The tsunami warning that was issued last night was issued to save lives. The outcome of this time was better than the warning before. Both those things are true at the same time. And putting the both of them together today is what it means to read this event honestly. Putting both the 1976 earthquake and yesterday's earthquake together means to read this event honestly. Putting together and comparing earthquakes is reading this honestly. This event southwest of Mindanao Island has produced multiple magnitude 7 plus earthquakes in recent decades, including the magnitude 7.4 earthquake in 2025 that we talked about. We covered, along with numerous magnitude 6 and 7 earthquakes clustered along the Serengeti and Davao region before. This region is not a quiet fault line. This region is not a quiet fault line. It's not a quiet fault line just woke up. This is one of the most active subduction corridors anywhere on Earth. Yesterday's earthquake event is just part of a long documented pattern of these very large subduction earthquake events. A very large, long documented pattern of these very large subduction zone earthquake events in the same region. Let me show you why this specific area produces events like this. We're showing you this slide right now because it explains both the danger and also the complexity of reading and understanding the data. The Philippines sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire. Let me bring up the Ring of Fire right now. You're going to want to see this. You're going to want to see this. Just a second. This is the Ring of Fire I've been talking about. The Ring of Fire on the east side stretches from the southernmost part of South America, goes up through Central America, Mexico, the western side of North America, US and Canada, goes through the horseshoe bend of Alaska, going over to Russia, Kamchatka Peninsula, Russia, south of Kamchatka through the Kuril Islands, into Japan, over along the coastline of China, Korea, down the Mariana Trench region, over to Guam, the islands of the Mariana Trench, even going over further east and south, down into Taiwan, Southeast Asia, going down around the southeast side of Asia, going over into Indonesia, down into the islands of the Pacific, over into New Zealand as well. The Pacific Ring of Fire. The horseshoe-shaped belt of subduction zones and faults that produces a majority of the world's largest earthquakes and most of the explosive volcanic eruptions around the world. Here in the Ring of Fire. Southwestern Mindanao, Philippines sits on a site, particularly violent intersection inside that tectonic belt. Here, multiple tectonic plate boundaries and trench systems converge. Multiple tectonic plate boundaries and even fault lines converge here. Let me enlarge this so you can see. Look at these boundaries, guys. Right smack dab in the middle of a 7 different tectonic plate intersection. A 7 different tectonic plate intersection here. The Philippines. The Philippines, guys. This is where the crust is squeezed, literally squeezed, subducting and fractured. Subducted and fractured from several different locations at once. Different plates here come together, subducting under each other. Subduction zones where one tectonic plate is forced beneath another like this. This is what can generate both the world's most powerful earthquakes and the most dangerous tsunamis. The reason is fundamental. As one plate grinds beneath another, stress builds up for years or even centuries until the locked interface suddenly slips, releasing most of all of the stored energy at once. The rupture is shallow and offshore, lifting the entire column of ocean water above it, which would have caused a massive tsunami. After the earthquake. This is the engine behind a megathrust tsunami. It is precisely because southwestern Mindanao Island sits over this kind of tectonic machinery that a magnitude 7.8 to 8.3 earthquake triggered here has an immediate region-wide seismic tsunami response. An immediate region-wide tsunami response. Yesterday, that tsunami wave ultimately fell short. It fell short, guys, for good reason. It fell short for good reason. Let me go back here. I want to show these slides again. Right here. This is the wave the 1976 earthquake took. It uplifted the ground at the bottom of the ocean, uplifted the ground with thrust water above the ocean surface, creating a tsunami wave. Now, Given what we've all talked about so far, where does this leave us the morning after? Let's bring back to the main central question, which is whether the southwestern Mindanao Island just dodged a catastrophic event, or is it still standing in front of one? The honest answer is that it's partially both. Even during the next several days, we may see which way this tilts. Starting with all the aftershocks we've seen, already over 100 aftershocks. At a minimum, 16 aftershocks the USGS reported, just hours following the main shock. One of those aftershocks was a 6.5 earthquake. One of the aftershocks was a 6.5 earthquake, which on its own, is a strong and potentially damaging earthquake. A magnitude 6.5 earthquake could in and of itself cause a tsunami. Let's get serious here. The 6-point aftershock itself could have caused a tsunami. It is a strong and potentially damaging earthquake. An active aftershock sequence at this scale is exactly what seismologists would expect after a major eruption that we saw. This means the fault system is still reorganizing now. The fault system we saw last night is still reorganizing now. Reorganizing for possibly a much larger earthquake, much larger and shallow earthquake. We're going to find out. After an active aftershock sequence we saw, we are exactly in the major rupture that we saw. This means the fault system is not over by a long shot. The single most useful thing to watch in the coming days is whether this aftershock sequence fades, as most aftershock sequences do, or whether it produces another large shock. Whether it produces another very large shock. Then there's actually the casualty count. The casualty count we talked about a few minutes ago, with 35 deaths confirmed and more coming. More being verified as we are on the show tonight. And will rescue teams still not reach the hardest hit areas? We expect those casualty numbers to rise incredibly high upwards. This is a standard trajectory of a major earthquake, where the figures will catch up to the reality only as the rubble is searched and communications is restored. The official sources being the Philippine government, their seismic agency, and even the Red Cross and local authorities in towns and cities along the coastline. The rescuers have not gotten to yet. Not the viral early estimates that put this earthquake as a 9.0 earthquake, which could have been, but it was not. As I said, I believe it was an 8.3, 8.5 earthquake. I do think this was at least an 8.2 to 8.3, but it could have been as high as an 8.5. I showed you those heel plot details earlier at the beginning of our program. The very high numbers are never real. The very high numbers are never very real. As I explained earlier, the variable that will ultimately confirm just how close this region comes to total devastation Whether yesterday was a deep slab earthquake that delivered a hard but survivable blow, or a shallow rupture that by how the earthquake fault moved, spread the coast and the tsunami it had every right to produce. That we can clearly say is the truth. A major earthquake struck one of the most dangerous tectonic intersections on Earth, in a region that has killed thousands of people before. It brought down buildings in General Santos City. In 2025, we saw a 7.4 earthquake knock down buildings in Davao City. We saw pools at the top of hotels and apartment buildings, water going over the top of the apartment buildings as the earthquake sloshed water out of the pools. We've seen it. In this case, a major earthquake struck one of the most dangerous tectonic intersections on Earth, a region that's killed thousands of people before, brought down buildings in General Santos City, knocked out power and communications, triggered tsunami warnings with arrival windows as short as 5 minutes long. 5 minutes long. Tsunami waves could have hit within 5 minutes after the earthquake hit because the earthquake was that close to shore. As it was, the tsunami waves were no more than 8 inches and at the most 3 feet high, in some places above the tidal highs. The worst case tsunami did not arrive, but most likely because of the depth and the way the seafloor moved. Aftershocks are still coming every day, every hour. The casualty figures are still rising. The fault, the tectonic plate that did this, has done far worse within our short history. And ladies and gentlemen, it will happen again. It will happen again and again and again. Because this earthquake is right smack dab in the middle of 7 different tectonic plates. Let's go back to USGS map for just a minute. Right smack dab in the middle of 7 different tectonic plates here. Let me show you this. As you can see on this particular USGS map here, they're showing us just one more earthquake that just happened. This red circle is an earthquake that just happened within the last 30 minutes. This is a 4.7 earthquake. 4.7 earthquake, 7 miles west of Balagornon, Philippines. Earthquakes are still happening. Again, this region here is right smack dab in the middle of 7 different tectonic plates to reach over to Tonga, Samoa, down into New Zealand, Australia, over here to Fiji, Vanuatu right here, the Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, Australia down here to the south, all of Indonesia here, the Philippine Islands here, the Philippine Islands here reaching up to Luzon, Philippines, to the north where Manila is, all the way up here into Taiwan, and ultimately up here north to Japan. Up here north of Japan. 7 different tectonic plates are in play here. One plate is subducting under the other here, with The Philippines, right smack dab in the middle of the tectonic plate region. Right smack dab in the middle of the tectonic plate region. That's where we're at. That's where we're at, guys. Is this going to continue? I don't know. Nobody knows at this point in time. Nobody. Not the scientists, not the engineers, not the rescue and recovery people, not nobody. Nobody knows how this turns out. As days go on, and yes, I will be reporting on this, as days go on, we're going to ultimately find out what happens here. Are we going to see a much larger, more dangerous earthquake? Possibly. Absolutely possibly. What do we need to do now? Let's pray for understanding. Let's pray for the people that have ultimately lost their lives in this earthquake that have not yet been found. Let's pray for those people that are buried under the rubble. They may be found post haste before their lives are sent out. Let's pray for the rescuers, the authorities in the region. They're working very hard, and I'm saying very hard, under enormous stress, under very tough and very warm, very hot and very humid conditions. That's what they're facing. Let's pray for all of them, that their lives may be extended, that their search canines will also be guided to those people. We may save lives from this earthquake. In closing, as I've done before, and I'm going to do again tonight, I want to leave you with a thought. I'm going to 1 Timothy chapter 1, starting with verse 11. According to the glorious gospel of the blessed God, which was committed to my trust, we're talking about the Apostle Peter, or Paul, the Apostle Peter, can't even think, the Apostle Paul here. And I thank Christ Jesus, our Lord, who hath enabled me, for that he counted me faithful, putting me into the ministry. He put the Apostle Paul into the ministry. Each one of us are also called into the ministry. We're called in the ministry. We're called to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. Few are called and very few are chosen. Why? Because of our adversities, because of our sins. Let's put our lives in such a way that we are following the gospel of Jesus Christ. We're doing what he would have us do, so that we may be guided in righteous ways. That when an emergency of this caliber starts where we are at, we might have God's guidance to be with us, to be able to do the things we need to do, so we may be able to save lives, even the very lives of our families. May God bless you. May God be with you this day and always. If anything happens tonight or in the morning, we'll be back on the air to tell you about it as soon as the information becomes available. There are many more large earthquakes that have struck around the world today. Yes, we've had another solar flare, which is contributing to the earthquakes that we've had. As the solar flares leave the sun, they will reach the Earth within 36 to 72 hours. So the solar flares that left the sun today will probably reach us by Wednesday or Thursday this week. May God bless us. May God be with us. We'll be able to do the things the Lord will have us do within his time. within his time, so we may be good servants in his kingdom. May God be with you this day and always. If anything like I said what happens tonight or in the morning, we'll be back here on the air to tell you about it as soon as the information becomes available. Other than that, we'll be back on the air sometime after 4 p.m. tomorrow evening with another episode of Emergency Management Associates. Until then, please, guys, go to our PayPal locations here and show us how thankful you are for us giving you this broadcast. Please send us donations to keep this program in the air. I don't think we got any super chats while we were on there today. I was hoping we would. May God bless you. May God be with you. May God be with you until we meet again. We'll see you on the other side, guys. Take care. God bless you. Have a good evening. See you soon. Good night.
Here at Emergency Management Associates, we're dedicated and true, bringing you the essential knowledge, helping you see things through. From disaster preparedness to navigating recovery's embrace, we're here to guide you in every unpredictable time and place. We break down the complex, make it easy to grasp and absorb, sharing strategies for safety, the vital lessons you can't afford to hoard. So thank you for watching, and thank you so much for your sub. You're a key part of our growing family, a member of our knowledge club. With every like, every share, and every comment you send our way, our critical message spreads further, helping more people every single day. Together we're stronger and more prepared. That's the truth we all abide. You help us build resilience with nowhere for uncertainty to hide. Your engagement truly inspires us. Your feedback acts as a guiding light, helping us continually grow and making our channel's future bright. We're always learning, always striving to be better. Bring you the most up-to-date information, no matter the weather. Emergency Management Associates is here for you now and forever, it's true. Keep watching, keep learning, because we truly appreciate all that you do. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.